Everybody, this is Lord Seibel from Adventist today. I am so pleased to be here today talking with a friend who I have not met in person, but we've exchanged notes on social media. Nowadays, Matthew, a lot of people are friends on social media who have never met in person. That's the case with us. Matthew Lucio is the pastor in Peoria. And some of my friends visited Matthew's church last week, and they said, Matthew's really uh, bucking the trend of small suburban churches who are struggling during COVID and continuing to try to do some interesting things. So I thought, well, I'm going to talk to Matthew and find out what's going on. I know, for example, Matthew, that you've been doing a online church based on your podcast. Tell us a little bit about that, how that started up.
Sure. Well, we had the idea a few years ago. It was maybe 2019, before COVID. That's how all time is reckoned, I think, is before COVID.
Before COVID and after COVID.
That's right. And we had this idea to start a YouTube channel. That's where it began. We wanted to create original content videos. So not just put sermons online, but to just explain Adventism to a digital age, because the idea was is that the online space is a space. It's a country, if you will, just a mismatch of all different kinds of people from around the world, and we're not really doing much to reach them. And so we thought, well, let's make some videos. We made a video about how much pastors get paid, just trying to be transparent about that. A video about, is Adventism a cult? And we had some fun with that. We toured our food room and gave them a primer on Adventist veggie meat, which people are still commenting on.
But that sounds kind of fun, actually.
It really is a lot of fun. I learned that there's a lot of things named tender. I mean, there's tender bits and tender rounds, and I'm not sure where that came from. But
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. By the way, I should tell you that I was a pastor of the Worthington Church.
Oh.
And my elder, Dr. George Harding, one of the things I have teased him about endlessly was that when he was a child, they had a contest to name one of the new food products, and he chose chocolates.
Oh, really?
George, you're going to go down in history, not for all the other things you did, but because you named chocolates.
Yep. So, I think there's a lot of fun aspects of Adventist culture that people just, people who are not in the Adventist bubble just don't understand or appreciate. So that's what the YouTube channel's about. And that turned into our live stream that really ramped up because of COVID, like many other churches.
Well, no, I'm assuming Peoria isn't a big city. It's you said 150,000 or so.
Yeah.
And you've probably a fairly normal suburban Adventist church. How have you guys survived this? Did you shut down for a while?
We did. We shut down in March of 2020 for a few months. We reopened in the summer, like June through October or something. Yeah. And then when the second wave started coming, we shut down again. But we kept live streaming. And in fact, don't tell anybody, but between you and I, the tech team here had a lot of fun doing that, because they could run cables over pews. We could film in any part of the church we wanted to when we were doing our live stream. So in the beginning, we had these wireless camera system. And so somebody be up in the balcony, somebody be in one room, somebody be in another room. And it's like, and now we're going to go to the closet with so-and-so for scripture. And, it wasn't, for some of us, it was a spiritually challenging time. And for others, it was an opportunity, I think, to express.
Yes. Sounds like a lot of learning and growth for your team.
It really was. It really was.
So what did you do? How did you keep community alive during this time? Local community. Did you do a lot of visiting? Did you call people a lot? What did you do?
Yeah, honestly, a lot of it centered around that weekly live stream. We did some other things. We were meeting on Zoom and stuff during the week. Mm-hmm. But one of the values we had for live stream was not just to show people on the outside what's going on the inside of the building, but to include them. So even today, when we teach Sabbath school, we have a TV right next to the Sabbath school teacher with comments that are coming in from Facebook and YouTube. And the whole point is whether you're here in person or watching online, you're a part of this class. Mm-hmm. And so we say hi to them. Hey, so-and-so from Atlanta, it's good to see you again. So-and-so from Denver, wherever. And they're a part of this church. We treat them that way.
I love that.
that was always a value. It's like, we don't just want to do something. We're not just feeding these people. We want to interact with them as best we can.
Now, one of the things that my friends Mark and Heather told me when they visited your church, they said, normally when we go into any church when we're traveling, we're the youngest people there. They're my age. Uh, and he said, we went into Matthew's church and there were people younger than us, and we love that. How have you managed that? They said something about a special Sabbath school that you've been doing.
Well, we have $100 to anyone who wants to have a child. No, that's how we. I wish it were that simple. Although I did promise anyone who names their child Matthew will get $100, and somebody actually did for the first time in my life. I've been saying that for years, and now I got to pay up.
Yeah, I love
it. But I mean, a lot of that, they're just the children of families who are here. This is a town where a lot of folks work for Caterpillar, and so that brings in a lot of folks who, as engineers and others who have young families. They come in, they spend some years here, and they sometimes leave for greener pastures. That's just the nature of living in Peoria. So we kind of have to orient ourselves to that, that we're kind of an intersection for a lot of people. But the good news of that, of course, is that they tend to be people with young families. And so we're happy to have them, and we want to pay a special attention to that. So part of our live stream every week is a kids quarter. It's 15 solid minutes of kids programming, and then of course oftentimes there's a children's story and stuff as well.
Wow, you've really embraced the video online digital life, haven't you?
Yes, we have. We start every Sabbath off with a Kahoot game, which is just a blast. We've been doing it for like a year and a half now. It's like Sabbath school prep for the adults, but man, the kids play too. We've given out T-shirts and books and stuff, and it's just a blast. We're trying to, I guess, have that vibe where this is church, but we have fun together too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's smart. Well, you know the old Peoria has been known for years as a sort of a test market for everything, right? Not so much anymore, but for a long time, even musicians would kick off their tours in Peoria. It goes back to vaudeville. There was a saying, "Will it play in Peoria?" And I read today that Richard Nixon picked that up. It was one of his favorite sayings. Yep. Whenever he did something, he would say, "But will it play in Peoria?" So what I want to know is, how is it playing in Peoria right now? Probably your church has the same span of people that most churches have, people who are progressive and looking for something new and more of a gospel. And then you have other people who on the other end of the spectrum are really wanting to be reassured that Adventism, the old Adventism they grew up with, was the right thing. How's it playing there?
Yeah, I think it's playing well. I think the goal isn't to try to eliminate any kind of theological or cultural tensions, but just to learn to live together.
Yeah.
I want to belong to a church where you have people from across the spectrum who are committed to being together and learning from each other. I don't want to live in this homogenous church where everyone thinks the same way, one way or the other, right? Because I'm not going to grow in that environment very well, and if there's anyone else. So, I think the goal that we're trying to achieve here is to be intentional about supporting people in these different ends of the Adventist spectrum, right? It's not a linear thing, right? It's a big tent. But we want this to be a place where they can find faith, and they have to understand that there are going to be people here who think and believe a little bit differently than them, and that's going to be okay. So
I think a lot of pastors would say amen to that. I think part of the problem is that lots of times the people themselves don't want to live peacefully together, but it sounds like your group does.
Yeah, they really are a fantastic church. I've pastored a few districts here, and this church is great. I mean, just emotionally healthy, spiritually healthy group of people. I don't have any responsibility for creating that in them. That was here when I got here, and I appreciate that in them. Mm-hmm. It's what's enabled us to do everything that we've done. You can't do anything unless the members of the church themselves are spiritually healthy.
Well, that's true. It's very much the case I found in my ministry that every group has a personality just like every person does. And
Yeah.
if you get a group that has a great personality, you'll often find that they've been happy going, whoever was with them as their pastor, whoever members came and go through the years, came and went through the years, they're generally just a happy group.
Yeah.
And that personality is such a gift when you can land there in a group like that.
Sure.
So, are you doing anything out in the community, or have you? How has Peoria tried to reach outside the walls
Yeah.
to Peoria Adventist reach outside the walls to Peoria City?
Yes, that's the challenge, right? Um, just because we have this vision of why should our church's influence be limited to this town? Why not just go to the world over the internet? I mean, that's there, but we still have a responsibility that we feel towards Peoria itself, and it's daunting, right? Like every other church. I mean, you look around and it's like it's us, and over 100,000 people. Like, what could we do to make a dent in this? So, traditionally we have had what we call the grow garden. The grow garden is about an acre of gardening land. It's really awesome. We've done a couple of videos on it on YouTube that people can check out. And the goal is to provide fresh produce to food pantries and stuff downtown in Peoria, because oftentimes they get canned food and things like that. And that's fine. I'm happy that they have food, but it's
Sure.
often fresh fruit. We have sections of the town that are food deserts, where the grocery stores have closed down and they have just nothing. They have to travel. They have corner markets and convenience stores, and that's where that's the closest place to go get food. And if they don't have transportation, they're in trouble in terms of having access to healthy food. So this is our primary community ministry right now. It's been really hard to keep that going during COVID, because we've just had to deal with so many restrictions and so on about whether we can volunteer at Salvation Army or whether we can go to this other place. So that's been a challenge. We've still been growing that food, of course, can't stop. And we've been finding ways to deliver it to people, and especially to the Mount Sinai Church, which is here in Peoria as well. And they're distributing it to members and neighbors and things like that. So that's been our primary community ministry. And we're looking into doing more. And we formed a committee to reorganize our church and figure out what roles do we need in order to accomplish what goals. And so that's exciting too.
And your local people are engaged in that. They like it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, get your hands dirty. You only argue about 1844 so many times, right? You want to get busy.
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, you and I are thinking along the same lines here. I was thinking in one of my churches a few years ago, I thought we were having a midweek study meeting, and I thought, how many times have we gone over the same information?
Yeah.
I mean, just dozens. You could almost predict what each person in the group is going to say about it.
Yep. I mean, I feel like that's basically Sabbath school class. Like we all have these go-to catchphrases that you hear members throw out, and it's like, yep, okay, someone's talking about the law. Somebody's going to say, yeah, we're saved by grace, but you just know every single time someone's going to say that. Sure, we got to get past that a little bit and go deeper.
Yeah. I really think this is what I love about talking to you, because I think there are a lot of people out there, a lot of the people who watch Adventist today don't realize that in between the West Coast and the East Coast, Florida and the Columbia Union, there's all these Adventists across the middle of the country. And we don't have huge institutional churches, most of us. We're in small churches where we just do our best to try to do something helpful and useful, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I'm proud of guys like you who are doing that successfully. That's just marvelous. What are you doing to keep giving up during this time? That's got to be tough.
Well, we threaten them. I'm just kidding. We make it as easy as possible. Like other churches, real big push for online giving. And because we still don't collect offering here, I don't know when or if that's going to come back. But we have an awesome box with a bunch of stickers on it in the lobby of the church, and people have been using that just fine. I don't know if there's anything we've done, or really any church has done, to really keep giving up. I think we were all surprised when giving remained pretty stable, if not up by a little bit. I remember when it started, we were given some caution by the NAD that we should expect giving to drop by, I don't remember what it was, like 20 to 40% or something. And we're like, okay, well, here we go. But then it didn't happen.
In some places it has.
Yeah.
But I think it's a tribute to you as a very active pastor who keeps trying things. It sounds to me like really the answer here, if young pastors are watching, is just innovate like crazy.
Yeah, people support movement, right? Nobody spends resources on a corpse. They want to support someone that's doing something. Even if, what I found is even if there are members who may not buy in 100% into what's happening, right? Even if it's like, well, that's not how I think we should relate to the young people necessarily, but at least they're doing something. At least my grandson or granddaughter is going to church. I visited a non-Adventist church here. It used to be a really old denominational traditional church, and one of non-denominational church, they didn't buy it, but they kind of merged with it. And I saw this older couple. He was wearing a suit and tie, probably like he had been doing for 50 years.
Yeah.
And up in the stage, they've got the lights and the fog and stuff. I was like, so after the service, I was like, so why did you come to this church? He said, well, it really isn't my style. He said, but my granddaughter comes here and I want to be with her.
Yeah.
And so, I think people, that's what a lot of folks want to say, even if they may agree or disagree with something that's going on. Just movement is a sign of life, and they'll support that.
Now let me move that question off a little bit to the side, because this is an important question that you're raising here, Matthew. Mm. So many of the churches that I know right now, small churches like yours, are riven with conflict. Mm-hmm. And you said you've got a good personality. People seem not to have gone in that direction. But what do you do? What would you say to a fellow pastor if you guys were sitting around over coffee and your pastor friend said, "I don't know what to do. I mean, they're always I can't win." What do you preach? What do you say? What do you talk about? What do you do that can make these very diverse people actually be a community? That's a heavy thing to lay on you, but you know what I'm asking.
Yeah. Obviously the cop-out is to say it really depends on the specific situation. But I think in general, I mean, the thing that could be said in that situation is that churches need to buy into a central vision. And if they really have bought into a central vision, then some of their differences can be just, they don't go away, but they realize they're not something to militate over. I found in my brief ministry that churches fight when they're bored. And I think, and I can't say there's a silver bullet way to get them out of that. It's going to depend from church to church. But I generally think, they want to grow. All churches want to grow. They want to thrive. They want to be successful. They disagree on how to do that. But, that's what they want. And, I think if we can, if that individual pastor can find a way to give them something, usually externally, to focus their attention on, rather than grievances they may have had over the last 35 years about who ate the last Big Frank in the can, I think that they can potentially find new life.
Yeah, and what is the vision that do you actually have to stand up and say, here's our vision, folks, focus on this? Or is it more a matter of keeping everybody active and doing things?
Yeah, I think the latter. I don't have a vision statement. We have a mission here at the church, and it gets put on a bunch of things, and I guarantee if you ask people what it is, most of them would have no idea what it is, right? It's one of those kind of pithy statements that get voted on, and then no one knows what it is or what it means. But really it's just about activity, and it's about the culture of the church, which I think is something that gets so little attention. We focus a lot on theology, and theology is important and all that, but I mean, a culture of the church matters so much in terms of what happens in that church and how they treat each other. And so I think, to me, I see myself as a bit of a chief culture generator.
Yes. Right? There's a phrase, something about that, culture culture consumes theology, dominates theology generally, and I find that's true.
Yeah, sure. So, I see it as my role as I'm not there as the chief theologian of the church. I see my role is to generate positive, Christ-like, healthy culture and how I carry myself and how I dress and so on. And I'm not perfect in that regard, of course, but that's kind of how I see my role as a leader. Um,
And do you
I
enjoy it?
oh, absolutely, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
you love being kind of a community uh, generator, the guy who says, let's do this, everybody, come on, follow me.
Well, I say, yeah, I don't tell them to follow me, but I do tell them to, at least I hope to demonstrate what it looks like to be a healthy Christian. That's my goal, right? And to encourage people to do that,
Mm-hmm.
and how they treat each other and so on. I mean, we have a member who took up a ministry here recently, and she came from another church, and she's just like, she came up to me one time and said, should we do this, that, and the other thing, or should we do this thing? And, do I have permission to get this? And I said, look, I've got enough to do. This is a ministry you've been called to. You lead this ministry. And she said, I've never had that happen to me before in a church. Usually it's somebody micromanaging me and telling me what I can and can't do and all this sort of stuff. And it's just like, look, I've got the thing I've got to do. If you're a ministry leader here, just do your job. Like, obviously communicate with other people and coordinate with other people, but it's the ministry you've been called to, and I have no interest in micromanaging everybody, because then I couldn't do what I'm called to do here. So, I just want to support them and enable them, because someday I'll be gone, and I still want it to be a healthy church that functions just fine without me, right? So I definitely don't want it to become dependent on my personality or whatever. So that's kind of how I see it. I like to begin any kind of ministry with the end in mind. Like, hey, I've got X number of years here. I don't know how long X is, but from now and whenever that is, I want to get them to a place where they're self-sufficient.
Somebody described that. One of my mentors described that as leadership by permission giving.
Yeah, I like that.
I like that a lot. That always worked for me. Lots of times people don't even know what to do when you say, somebody would walk up and say, Pastor, why don't we have and describe something. I say, yeah, can you find one other person to join you in that? I think
Yeah.
so. Okay, then you have my permission to do it, and I'll get you some money.
Yeah.
And that to me worked about the best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hey, this
Yeah.
has been fun, Matthew. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I'm with you. I think I like that idea of leadership by permission giving, and I think with that comes an encouragement for people to brainstorm and find something creative to do. Like, part of that permission is you guys don't have to do something just because it's always been done that way, right? We don't have to church offices just because they're in the manual. It's
Oh man, how many times have we sat before a list of offices and they're determined to fill every one of them, and about half of them, the person who they filled them with didn't do anything anyway.
Yep. They wear 10 hats and only do one of the jobs.
Well, some of them were impossible. We have a youth leader, but we have no youth.
Yep.
Sort of thing. And you say, well, why should we do that? Why should we fill that? But so yeah, I like that idea. Hey,
Yeah.
this has been so much fun to talk with you. I am so encouraged when I talk to pastors, younger pastors, who have thought through how they're going to make a community work. And I love this idea of being the director of culture. That's great. Here's what I'm going to do, Matthew. In the note underneath this, I'm going to put links to your channel and your podcast and your church website and some of the things you do, so people can kind of see what you're doing. And
Okay.
maybe somebody else out there who's struggling will be encouraged and say, hey, there's a guy out in Peoria that's managed to keep things going through a hard time in the middle of the country where there's no institution. And hey, praise to him. Thanks so much, Matthew.
Sure. It's been my pleasure. I'm glad we had a chance to do this.